Hey guys, welcome back. In this video we continue working with the real-time database, and now we're going to shift our attention to the settings page. So before I do that, let's go to my main activity and make sure that my settings, that my on options item selected method is pointing to the settings page, which it is. That's good. And from here I can press Ctrl and click settings, and it will take me to the class itself. Alright, so in our settings activity, the first thing we'll do is we'll create our Firebase database, or rather our database reference, not our Firebase database. So database reference, and I'll call mine root, and I can initialize that in the onCreate. Root is equals to Firebase database dot get instance dot get reference. Okay, the next thing I'll need is the unique ID of the current user, so I'll write string UID. But to get that UID, I will also need a Firebase auth object. So Firebase auth, and I'll initialize that here. Auth is equals to Firebase auth.get instance, and then finally UID is equals to auth.get current user.get UID. Okay, so there's our initial Firebase stuff out of the way. Now the next thing we'll need is to point to the database. So rather, not the database, we've already pointed to the database. We've said database root and we've initialized it. So we're pointing to the database. Now what we need to do is to point to the particular data that we need. And to do that, let's first take a look at the table, at the database rather. Then we'll look at the whole thing. So by saying Firebase database.get instance.get reference, we've pointed at this. Now how do we tell the application to go into this table, go into the data for this particular user, whoever's UID this is, and then get these details? What we have to do is use the child method, just as we were doing when we put data inside of the database. So we say, let's create another object, database reference. This time it will be userdb. Userdb is equals to root.child. The first step is users. .child. The next step is the UID, so we have that through this string UID, and then finally we can start taking the data. Now to do that, we use another method, so let's terminate there. To do that, we take the userdb and we apply a method called add value event listener. Let's terminate it first, and within it we say new value event listener, and it will give us the boilerplate code, and then it gives us this method called onDataChange. So this add value event listener allows you to access your data, and within it, this method onDataChange, it looks at a snapshot of the data at the current moment, the snapshot of the data as it is right now, and also it is triggered whenever the data changes, thus the name. So it passes in this data snapshot, and the data snapshot is just all the data as it is right now. So in fact, for a small test, what we can do is we can put a small we can put a log message. We can say log d and press enter. Change this to test db, and here we can just pass in that data snapshot. So we can say data snapshot dot toString. Alright, let's just run this. This is just for example's sake, so feel free to wait for it to pass. No need to write this code, although it's good for practice. Right, so this will be triggered once I go into the settings page. So let's go there. Settings. Alright, Now nothing's going to happen here because it's just a log message that I put, but I can come to my logcat and I can search for testdb, and that gives us on data change, which came by default, and then data snapshot followed by key, which is the user ID, and we can take a look at that. So we are logged in as this user, G6PRU, etc. G6PRU, and then the value is the entire JSON string. So you have compressed image is default, status is joined square today, and finally username is Will. So that's how the data snapshot works. Now, how can we use it? How can we take that JSON string and actually get data? So let me remove my log, and the first one is of course the username. So let's apply the username. So what we do is we say string name is equals to data snapshot dot child, again this method once again, and this time we want the name. Let's open up the logcat again. This time we want this. It's actually username, not name. So I'll say username, and then you say dot get value, and this will return an object, so you have to turn it to a string using toString. Okay, we can do this again for the status. So in fact I'll just Control D to duplicate, change this to username and this to status. Status is equals to data snapshot dot child status dot get value dot toString. And now we can put this into our text views. So username, oh, they share a name, so the text view and the strings share a name. That might cause trouble, so let's call this username string and we'll call this status string. So username dot set text username string, and then status dot set text status string, and that's that. I'm going to apply these changes and we'll see if there are any errors. And there we go. So there's our username, and okay, the status you won't really be able to tell that it's changed. But let's see if we can just change it from here. So let's change this to just join square today. Let's get rid of this. Okay, well, join square today. I'll copy that. There we go. Okay, let's see what happens in the app. And it changes to join square today. So once again, real-time database. As soon as a change occurs, the application is listening for those changes. Right, so that has worked wonderfully. Now, this video has run not too long, but it's run a little long. So what I'll do, I'll stop it here and we can change the values in the next one.